Hi, this is Dan Heaton from the Tomorrow Society podcast. I've recorded a few audio commentaries of some videos, basically home movies from trips when I was younger that I've uncovered from the 80s and even 70s when I was really little. This time I'm doing a slideshow, which basically my parents went in 1972 before I was even born. And so I'm going to talk about some pictures that they sent me recently of Walt Disney World, which, it only opened on October 1st, 1971. And this is from like June of 72. This is a shot, of course, of the contemporary resort. Look at how spare everything looks. You have no convention center, obviously, no Bay Lake Tower, and just so simple. There's very few trees. This is basically a resort that had not even been open for a year, and you can really see it in this picture. What's interesting here, though, is looking at Main Street USA, there is quite a lot of activity. A lot of photos from this time period don't include many people. I wonder if this shot actually happened after the parade because you see so many people, especially crowded near the train station. As we're turned around and we're looking back at the train station, if you look on your right here, you can just make out a sign for the tobacconist, which was an early shop that sold cigars, pipes, etc., some smoking accessories. Very interesting. Now, of course, a lot of that's been replaced by the Lengthy Emporium. That spot, the Main Street Athletic Company, I believed it closed in the mid 80s, if what I read correctly is true. Just such a different look. On the surface, I mean, on the left, you can kind of see the Main Street Cinema. Everything looks similar, but this was a very different Main Street. And speaking of spare from earlier, you have Cinderella Castle looking very different because we have such a clear view. There are so few trees. This area in front of me, I believe, is where you would now maybe do some fireworks viewing, but so much has changed with all the redoing of the hub and everything being gutted and put back. So it's almost hard to even match it up. You can see where you're standing, but I don't think you'd have this kind of view. There's no stage in front of the entrance, as you can see over to the left. And now, with the 50th anniversary, everything is very different just with how the castle looks. It's not pink or whatever you want to call what they have right now, very regal, I guess is what they're putting in. But this is the original version of the castle going back to the earliest time at Walt Disney World. And I love having this view where you can see it from the bottom to the top with very few obstructions. On a similar note, we have the Rivers of America, also with very few trees, as you have a clear shot of the Haunted Mansion. You can see a bit of a cover on the queue, but it is not the same as it is now. Things hadn't really grown up at this time. Haunted Mansion was an opening day attraction. And another opening day attraction that is no longer there is the Mike and Keel boats, which were themed to Davy Crockett and the River Pirates, the movie that Disney put out. And it's too bad they're not there anymore, but I believe one of the issues was that everyone would sit up top, and you can even see that with the shot here. We have some people at the bottom, and the top is just packed because everyone wants to see out and get a good view. But it's just crazy to see such an empty Rivers of America here. But I love, and of course, you get the top right, I believe you can see the Skyway, essentially now where the tangled restrooms are. Skyway Station, which went back towards Fantasyland and then through Tomorrowland. I love this shot so much. This is a clear shot of Fantasyland. This may be from the Skyway, but it's a little hard because you can see the Skyway kind of going forward and to the left. I think we may be on the Skyway as we kind of inch upward here. This is a really interesting photo. Dumbo in a very different spot here. The way you can think about it too, if you see the carousel over there, is that Dumbo was basically the castle was essentially to the right of this photo. So you have the carousel, and then now where there's kind of the various turrets and everything else, because you can see where Pinocchio Village House is over there. Trying to get your bearings here as you kind of face towards Tomorrowland, looking out that direction. And you can see the rock work here setting up, I believe, for 20,000 Leagues. And here we have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is it's so sad to have that gone. You can actually get a little bit of the Skyway corner, bucket 59, I believe. But 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, you have these amazing subs of the Nautilus. They actually weren't subs, they were just boats, but had, designed where we would sit down below and make it seem like we were sitting on subs. Such a cool design from Harper Goff that George McGinnis put into place for these vehicles. Bob Gurr was involved with this. And being that this is so early in its run, you have such crystal clear waters there. It's beautiful to see. I miss it so much. I remember when it closed in '94, but it was just for maintenance, and then several years later, it was like, "Okay, it's definitely gonna be closed for good." And things didn't happen for a while. Ultimately, they've had a play area with Winnie the Pooh, and now, if you're wondering, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is in that area, but it took a long time to get where Seven Dwarfs Mine Train would open. We have now reached the parade portion of this slideshow, beginning with Mickey leading what was known in the early days as the Character Parade, later called the Cavalcade of Characters. And you have Pluto there on the side. And this is really interesting just with the characters, as we're going to see in multiple pictures. You can kind of see a little bit, I believe, of the Seven Dwarfs, or is that the mouse from Cinderella? I'm not 100% sure on the right side. But also, something to notice is how close people are. There are no ropes or anything else keeping people separate. It also is a fairly small crowd by parade standards. So everyone's basically right on top there, and you have the characters going and meeting with some kids and all of that. So it's an interesting photo just to see people so crammed in as we set up for what's a pretty simple parade. No big, massive floats, nothing on the near the level we see today. Mickey is now running around with the baton since he was leading the band. We have another shot of Pluto. Interesting shot here is you can see the cup and saucer, which was a china shop in the early days, which was kind of just down from where the Main Street Cinema was, if you're trying to get your bearings of where that was. Essentially on the right side, if you were facing towards the castle, but no longer there today. I wasn't able to locate much info about this other than it was there in the early years. But it shows you again how what has changed with Main Street over the years from those early days when you had more Main Street S shops, and on the other side with the Emporium has changed, but even Main Street Cinema is not the cinema that it was. It's become something very different. Penny Arcade is basically gone, so a lot of the early components of Main Street USA are now gone. Now we're looking kind of in a similar direction here, but we have a bunch of characters you don't see much of anymore. You can see the Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf. So many photos and videos of this time, or even later, always seem to have the Three Little Pigs. I think they were just something we always took shots of. They were funny, they ran around. You have Thumper and Flower from Bambi, if you can see way in the back. On the car, you have the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. So a lot of characters that were very common to see in the early days of the Magic Kingdom, but would be less so now, as there's been plenty of movies that are more prominent, and Disney focuses more on those, understandably so. Again, we have another shot of the Cup and Saucer, and then the Main Street Cinema, and you can kind of see the train station in the back with, again, another marching band coming up after. But this is really focused on, hence the name Character Parade. We are going to focus on the characters that are being shown. Now, if you look at this, you have Winnie the Pooh, the old school Winnie the Pooh with the honey pot on the head, kind of oddly shapen character that has changed a lot over the years. I always enjoy seeing that. Winnie the Pooh, being that that film came out in the 70s, was very prominent with its Pooh for President that they were doing on both coasts. So Winnie the Pooh is a big character and super popular. You also have Tigger back there interacting with a few characters. And then in the foreground, with our Main Street Transportation Company vehicle, you have Donald Duck, a different version in terms of the character you meet in the park, greeting from that vehicle. But you can really see, just as we look through more pictures from this parade, just how little is there. I mean, you have characters and you got a few Main Street vehicles, but like I mentioned earlier, it's just pretty much a way to see characters because there weren't all the set up character greetings that you have now. You would meet them walking around the park, but this was a great way to meet a bunch of characters was just to see them in the parade because it's not like you could just go meet them in their designated spot at a certain time. Last shot of the parade here is fife and drum. And you can see this is the end of the parade because you have people following them slowly, as people would tend to do at the end of a parade. And so we've seen a good portion of this, and it's hard to think about it in terms of 2021. But in 1972, Disney was still getting started with what they were doing at the Magic Kingdom, figuring out what type of entertainment they really wanted to do in the park. And seeing this parade's kind of a perfect example and gives you some great shots of what Main Street was like in those really early days. There's even a camera shop back there way in the corner, which is no longer set up the same way. Well, I hope you enjoyed looking at all these slides from Disney World in 1972. This is just a beach shot from, I believe, Fort Lauderdale. And I just wanted to take a moment to let you know what I also do, which is I'm the host of the Tomorrow Society podcast, which is an interview podcast where I talk with a variety of experts on theme parks, smart people, including a lot of former Disney Imagineers and some current ones to talk about what they've done in their careers, their stories, and a lot of inside background on attractions. I also talk with authors and filmmakers and podcasters all about the parks. You can learn more. You can search for any podcast provider, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the whole deal. You can also go to tomorrowsociety.com to learn more. And if you enjoyed this video, please let me know. Subscribe to the channel. There'll be a lot more like this in the future. I've already released a lot of videos. Also, like this video and spread the word. We're a small channel, but I really enjoy doing this and would love to spread the word about this and the podcast. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll talk to you again very soon.